Good morning, everybody. We have Texas and we have Montana this morning. We're going to have another class from Montana joining us in just a few minutes. My name is Allie Depew. I'm with Inspired Classroom, and we are here with We Are Montana in the Classroom, which is a program brought to you by the University of Montana. I'm standing here with Dr. Natalie Dawson. She's the director of the Wilderness Institute and a professor of ecosystem sciences at the University of Montana. She did her undergraduate work at the University of Michigan and her graduate work at Idaho State University, the University of Alaska Fairbanks, and the University of New Mexico. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Natalie.
Thanks, Allie. Okay, so bear with me. This is my first time doing this kind of lecture. So I'm going to kind of wrestle through the technology along with you guys. Okay, so today's talk and activities are going to be centered on sense of place and what is place to each of us. And I'm hoping to send you out into the rest of your lives with a set of skills that you can take with you that's relevant not only for pathways into science, but pathways into whatever you might choose to pursue in the future. So I need everyone right now to take out a piece of paper and a pen or pencil. And we're going to start right away with the activity. So if you can get that stuff out, it's not optional, you all have to do it. So go ahead and get your pen and paper out. So as you're getting things out, I wanted just to give you a couple definitions to start thinking about. And what is the difference between place and space? I think trying to define both place and space is an important place to start. And so place is what we consider as...
I'm going to pause you just really quickly and say hello to Powell County. Powell County, if you will just grab out a pen and pencil, we're doing a quick activity with Dr. Dawson.
Okay, so I think we've got all three schools now who are going to be with us this morning. As Powell gets out their pen and paper, I'm going to just flip through a couple slides. And so today we're going to be talking about sense of place in a complex world, or how each of us defines home. And it's kind of neat to do this with multiple schools represented in different places, even different states, because we're going to find that we each define home and what our important places are in our lives slightly differently. Just to give you a tiny bit of background on me, that's me as a child. I grew up in Michigan, just outside Detroit, a very large city of over 1 million people, but I got to spend a lot of time outside as a kid, which shaped basically everything else I've done since then. When people ask me what I do, I say that I ski and I climb. I don't necessarily tell them what I do professionally. It's not really how I've ever defined myself. I enjoy being in mountains, in snow, particularly cold mountain places as much as possible. This is Carpathian Peak in south central Alaska. I'm also a wildlife biologist, so I like to trap small furry creatures. That's a pine marten. We'll talk a little bit about those later on. Some of you in Montana might be familiar with pine marten. You'll see them in forested areas through the western part of the state. I enjoy fishing. That's a silver salmon. I spend a lot of time on river systems and ocean-going vessels chasing fish. And probably one of the ways I spend most of my time in the spring, summer, and fall is finding very large rocks and trying to climb up them. So that's a little bit about me. All right, so everyone's got a pen and paper. So what I want you to do is you're going to draw a couple different things. And don't worry, you don't have to be a good artist. I'm going to show you my drawings in a minute, and you're going to feel really good about whatever it is you put on paper, because I'm terrible at drawing. You're going to draw two maps. One is a map of your route to school, and I want you to draw from your house to your school and what that journey looks like. And as you draw that map, and just take 3 minutes to draw it, so you don't have to get in too great of detail, just draw your route to school. And along that route, draw whatever is notable to you. whatever things stand out to you as you travel to school every morning. And then the second thing you're going to draw is an imaginary place or a place that you that's a favorite place for you. And it could be something made up in your mind, or it could be a place that's actually an actual somewhere. And maybe you visit it every day, maybe you get to visit it once a year, but that's the second thing I want you to draw. So those are the two things, and I'll give you guys about 5 minutes to do that. Okay. Oh yeah, the blue box.
So Natalie, while they're drawing, will you tell us a little bit about some of those pictures and where they were taken?
Yeah, sure. So the first picture I showed you was, as I said, taken on Carpathian Peak, which is one of the 6,000-foot peaks in Chugach Mountain Range in south central Alaska. I showed you a picture of a pine marten that was taken during a trapping season on QU Island, which is an island in southeast Alaska along what they call the North Pacific coast, where I do a lot of research. That silver salmon was caught in Prince William Sound during the early August silver salmon runs. And the rock I showed you that was silhouetted against the evening sky was taken in Cochise, Arizona, a place called Cochise Stronghold. That's a series of granite batholiths for any budding geologists out there. And all a batholith is a strong piece of rock that doesn't erode away with time as everything around it does. And we've got batholiths here in Montana scattered everywhere from Dillon to northeastern Montana to some up in western Montana near Troy.
And that's not to be mistaken with the basilisk from the Harry Potter series.
Right. Okay, so hopefully folks have done a couple of these sketches, and so I wanted to give you time to interact with each other, not just a computerized version of myself during this. So I'm going to give that time to you in just a second, but I'm going to basically illustrate to you what I would like you to do with a couple of your neighbors surrounding you in your classroom. And that is to just share a little bit about what you just drew. And so I'm going to switch over to a document camera real quick to show you what I drew. Okay, there we go. Okay, so not ideal, but it'll work. So here's where I start. That's my house. There's a huge spruce tree in my yard, which stands out when I think of my home, where I come from, and my truck, which looks slightly like an elephant. I walk along the bike path to work every day. The bike path is next to the river. That's this squiggly line right here, the Clark Fork River, which flows through the city of Missoula. And I walk along the bike path, and there's 3 distinct bridges that I go underneath. And I know how close I'm getting to work as I go under these bridges. The other thing that I notice every day is this huge raspberry bush that when raspberries are in season, I always stop and eat. So that sticks out in my mind. These are cottonwood trees. Like I said, my artistic abilities are minimal. And cottonwood smell really strongly in the spring. Lots of folks probably have that same experience. And then in the summer, they provide a lot of shade on this bike path that would otherwise be brutally hot for my bike or walk commute. I also have this building that's one of the bakeries in town that I'll often stop and grab coffee at in the morning, so it sticks out in my mind, as well as this office right here. I said WRFI, it's the Wild Rockies Field Institute. It's where I worked when I first came to Montana, and it's where one of my best friends works, so I always think of her when I walk by it. And then I finish up here at the university, and I work in a clock tower building. And as I get closer to campus, there's always lots of people. The only other thing that's on here that you can't quite see is the sunrise. And the way it works in Missoula, because we live in a valley, it's actually pretty hard to see the sun. And so I can always tell when seasons are changing based on at what point in the morning I can see the sun on my bike or walk commute. And so that view of the sun through the valley on the north side of Mount Sentinel is a standout to me on my route. My second drawing is, a place called Symphony Lakes. And this is a place just outside of Anchorage, Alaska, where I used to live and work. And it's a 12-mile trail. It's 6 miles each way. And I used to go up to this place after work and run a lot. And it's a slightly uphill and then downhill trail to some beautiful lakes on the edge of some really big, beautiful mountains. And in the fall, I go blueberry picking there in the foothills, so I put blueberries there. And the first half of the trail is usually very shrubby, and there's lots of grizzly bears. So you have to be really careful and yell a lot when you're running through that area, and so that always stands out in my mind. But when I think of happy places for myself and some of my favorite places, this is the one that pops into my mind. So, given the story share that I just did with you, I'd like you to turn to a couple of your neighbors and talk through just a couple characteristics of the two places that you drew. First, why did you choose to draw the route to school that you did and include the characteristics that you did choose? And second, why did you choose your favorite place that you chose? And think about the scale on which you drew those places. Did you draw it on a small scale? Did you draw a map of your entire city or town? And why you might have done that. So take just a couple minutes to turn to your two closest neighbors and share a little bit about each of your maps. Okay, so as you're sharing with each other, we would like to have one representative from each school come up and share their maps. So both their route to school as well as their favorite place. And we would like to hear from each school so that we can get an idea of the characteristics that each of you find important when you think of the place in which you live, as well as a place that you would like to go or a place you like to visit, a favorite place.
Let's go ahead and start with Texas. Texas, will you send one person up to the camera and unmute your microphone, please? There we go, yeah. I need you to unmute your microphone. You're still muted.
That was present.
Did that work? There we go. Nice.
Yes.
Okay.
I live in Perryton, which is 30 minutes from Derzett, where I go to school. And so I have a 30-minute bus drive every day. And then I didn't draw anything else.
So your imaginary place is going fishing.
You gotta show your picture.
I didn't draw anything!
I see it right there.
There's nothing there. There's that picture.
Dad, show me a fishing picture.
That's all I
Okay.
have.
Let's hear about your fishing picture.
Let's hear about the fishing
What
photo.
fishing picture?
No, Dallas, show them.
Show the Jacob, you show him. No, Taco Landia shall not exist.
All right, let's move over to Powell County. Powell County, how about you? Will you send a representative up and turn your microphone on, please?
Okay, so I say where I'm from. Go ahead. I'm from Deer Lawn.
Yes.
And I don't know, I live pretty close to the school. I just, I just go on to the main street, across a bridge, and then to a light, and there's my school. And my favorite place, the mountains. Like to go camping in the mountains. I don't know if you can see that.
Great. No, thank you very much. That's wonderful.
All right.
All right.
Willard.
All right. I don't know if you guys can see me. I'm going to share my route. We're going to split this up into two different directions. I travel down 3rd Street, which is a main east-west route in Missoula. It goes to the west end of town. It's a long route going way west of town, but I come right about the middle of it. And the only thing that I really pay attention to, because there's so many buildings along the way, is I think that there's some sort of creek that goes underneath Russell Street. You can see a lot of cottonwoods, a lot of brush, and then you can see what looks like might be a tributary, and I've never stopped and jumped out and said, hey, what's there? So that's just one of the things that I know is there. So, and another student's going to come up, and they're going to do their favorite place.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, so my favorite place is, I don't know, there's like mountains and stuff. It's Lolo Hot Springs, because I usually go there like every summer a lot for like music festivals and whatnot. So yeah. There's like,
awesome, thank you.
This is.
All right, that's great. And I know that the way these cameras work, it's hard to see some of folks' drawings, but you get an idea just by listening to people. Even the first person who hadn't actually drawn anything on his paper, he talked about his time, the time that's spent getting to a place, which is one way in which we define our place and our sense of a space. Also, he mentioned fishing, which is an activity, and a lot of times we associate places with things that we do. Someone else just talked about Lolo Hot Springs. They not only have a family member there, but it's a place that they go to very often. A couple folks mentioned geography, mountains and creeks on their daily commute or favorite places, and that is very common. There's been lots of research to show that when we think about the places in which we find our own identity as individuals, they're largely linked to natural landscapes, even if we live in the middle of an urban center. And so I've done this activity with schools all over the country, and even schools from inner city Detroit, where I'm from, or Chicago, or Minneapolis, big cities. Even those students tend to draw where they are in time and space related to a creek, a park, a lake, their grandparents' home, which is located somewhere in the North Country, out in the woods, a specific tree that they pass by. We tend to often identify where we are with natural features on a landscape. Great, thanks very much for participating. Don't be shy. You're going to have to participate a couple more times during my talk. I don't want to just stand up here and talk to you guys the whole time. Okay, so work with me here on this PowerPoint. I'm going to have to shift around so that I don't stand in your way. Why did I just have you do this exercise? Well, because today's lesson is all about sense of place, it's really about learning a little bit about your personal experiences that you use to identify who you are in the rest of the larger world. Drawing is one way that you can get an idea about how you feel and interpret a specific landscape. And so from there, I'm going to go to Las Vegas, Nevada. Okay, so this is city nighttime landscape of Las Vegas, Nevada. This is not how I associate the place that is Las Vegas, Nevada. Drawing, if I was to draw Las Vegas, my drawing would look very different. It would actually look something, oh, I'm not used to using this.
Here, roll down with the, roll down.
Sorry, I usually use mouses.
That's okay.
Can I just use the arrows? Sorry, technical difficulty.
Here, let's see. Are you wanting to go to
there we go. Okay.
There we go.
This is how I would interpret the landscape. This is actually a friend of mine who's another rock climber. His name's Jeremy Collins. He's an artist. And this is a drawing of Red Rock Canyon National Recreation Area, literally just on the other side of a hill from this place right here. So we're less than 5 kilometers from downtown Vegas when we're standing in Red Rock Canyon National Recreation Area. But as you can see from this artist's representation of the place, he's got names of different canyons and different walls. Like Rainbow Wall is a very well-known climbing area, developed back in the 1960s when rock climbing over 2,000-foot walls was just getting started. So when I think of Las Vegas, I tend to think of something like this, an artistic representation of a wild place that sits on the fringe of a big city. I might also think of this. This is my girlfriend and I climbing last November in Red Rocks, a former student actually. So there's lots of different ways we can, again, interpret a place and therefore develop a sense of place, which helps us develop lots of different attitudes about all different aspects of life. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you a series of photos. We're going to look at 14 photos, and I'm going to need the document camera again.
Great.
And what you're going to do is you're going to, on a piece of paper, make a list that looks something like what I'm about to show you.
There it goes. There's an AF button, which is an autofocus.
Oh,
there, too.
autofocus. Okay.
Yep.
Sorry, I don't know. Where's that at? Oh, there we go. Okay. All right, so you're going to, this sheet only has 12 because I've done this before with just 12. But basically what you're going to do is you can make a little bit of a table or you can just keep track. So you're going to want to number 1 to 14, and then you're basically going to have 5 different potential reactions to each photo. Like very much, like it a little, no feeling at all, dislike a little, and dislike a lot. And the idea is we're going to start to think about individually what we think of when we think of places that we like to be in or at or visiting. And that's going to help us, again, kind of further develop our own sense of characteristics of place and how we identify both ourselves and places where we like to be, like to go, like to interact with over time. So there's the chart. That's in general what you can use to keep track.
All right. Should we go back to the screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm not going to tell you where any of these places are. You're welcome to ask me afterwards if you're dying to know. For now, I'm just going to show you 14 photos, and I'm going to go through them pretty quickly. So just, what's your first immediate reaction to each photo? Remember, like it very much, like it a little, no feeling at all, dislike it a little, or dislike it a lot. Okay, photo number 1 is right here. Okay, photo number 2. Photo number 3. Photo number 4. Five. 6. 7. 8. 9. 10. 11. 12. 13. 14. Okay, so based on that, what I would like you to do is, again, turn to a couple of your neighbors and discuss the following 3 questions. Which landscape or which photo did you like the best? And which photo did you like the least? And why? Why was your reaction that way to all those photos?
Class change.
Yeah.
They have short periods.
Okay, so because I think Texas is switching up. Maybe we'll go to Willard to start with, and if one of you would like to share what your favorite photo and your least favorite photo was, and I'm happy to bring those photos back up again if you'd like to refer back to them.
I like number 11 a lot because there was just a bunch of people like hanging out, and I like camping and stuff, so it was pretty chill. And I don't really think I had a least favorite photo. Like maybe like the second one because it looked all like arid and dry, but I don't know.
Okay, great, thank you. How about somebody from Powell County?
Hi.
Hi.
I think was 4, and I don't think I really had a least favorite one because they're all pretty cool.
Okay. What do you like about photo 4? Do you remember?
Can you show it again? Cause
I can. Yes. Let's go backwards. Take me a minute here.
This guy might go a little faster here. Okay.
This is all backwards for my computer. That's why I'm having a hard time. 1, 2, 3. Does that one seem right?
yeah, I think I liked it more because I really like the city and stuff.
Cool. That's great. Thank you. All right. Again, it tends to be the experiences in our own life that helps us shape why we like or dislike particular places or particular landscapes. And the idea behind this activity was to give each of us an individual sense of physical characteristics, because we looked at physical landscapes and how those physical characteristics make us have a sense of place. And this is something you can do and hopefully can become aware of as you travel outside the classroom after having listened to me talk for a few minutes. Okay, so why did we spend the time doing this? This is going somewhere, I promise. I'm going to take you now to a place that is far away from either of the classrooms that you're all in today. This is Georgetown. I would like to make myself disappear. Yep, 2. This is Georgetown, Washington, D.C. It's a community in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. And Georgetown is a pretty interesting place, and I'll get into it in just a moment. First off, just raise your hands. How many people in the room have an Apple product? Either a laptop, an iPhone, an iPod? Okay, pretty much everyone. So this could be relevant to almost every single individual's life. All right, so the top photo is a picture of an Apple store in Georgetown, Washington, D.C. The other 2 photos are what Georgetown looks like. Georgetown is what's called a place-making dividend, which means in economic development circles, it means people stay longer and come back more often and spend more money there because it attracts their affection. And we don't really think of, as consumers buying an iPhone or an iPod, that we would choose to go shop in a particular place because of its look or our affection towards it, but we often do. And they show through studies that more often than not, people like to shop in downtown areas, places that have old buildings and walking areas on their streets for pedestrians. It gives us the sense that we're in a small place and we're not in big box stores on a big highway system. We're kind of in this very unique space, and there's a lot of work that goes into this. So the story behind the Apple store is that they came into Georgetown and approached the community and said, we want to build a store. We want to build a store so we can sell all of our Apple products. And Apple is a very desired company, as you guys showed by raising your hands. almost all of us have an Apple product or have come into contact with an Apple product at this point in time. Billions and billions of dollars every year. So why wouldn't you want an Apple store in your neighborhood? Because it's going to bring people in. It's going to have them come and shop there. Well, the community of Georgetown said, we don't like the look of Apple stores. They look too futuristic. And Georgetown has been a very important town for commerce since the 1600s. So they've had over 400 years to adopt their own sense of identity as a community. And they hold very true to that, as you can see from these 3 photos. They like to show old brick buildings from the colonial period. That's their style. And so they told Apple, okay, sure, you can build a store, but you have to make it look like all the other stores in our neighborhood. And it took 2 years for that to happen, but it did happen. Apple ended up building a store, as you can see in the upper corner, to match the facade of the other stores along Main Street in Georgetown. And this happens all across the country. So, I can pop back up now. Maybe this will bring me back. 2?
Number 1.
Oh, number 1.
Yep.
Okay. All right, there, I'm back now. Okay. So, so this happens all across the country. We can often forget that even in urban planning, we have to remember that every building has a specific site. It starts with some kind of groundbreaking activity on a specific site. Every site then has a specific neighborhood. This is the neighborhood on the University of Montana campus. And every neighborhood is part of a larger community. This is the community of Missoula on a summer, or a spring day, actually. I just shot that photo the other day. So if we think in terms of that, think of all the sites, all the buildings, and how those characterize the communities in which you live and like to interact. What does your community look like, and what are those characteristics? So this helps us define where we're from, as well as our own personal preferences, because this is where I grew up. Where I call home is very different from where someone else calls home, except when we get into some contemporary architectural design. And so if we look at, this is just a strip mall not too far from my parents' house. This could be anywhere in the entire country or other countries. I could show you this and there wouldn't be any identifying characteristics. However, if I went backwards and showed you this photo, there are some identifying characteristics. Largely that big body of water, which is the Detroit River, that stands out when we look at this photo, and it puts us immediately in a certain place. This is not Albuquerque, New Mexico, or El Paso, Texas. So, we all need points of reference and orientation, and often the distinctive attributes of our local communities can provide orienting features that allow us to develop a sense of place. So the other day I sent a quiz to your teachers, and this quiz is called a BioRegional Quiz. And I'm going to put it up on the document camera as well. And this is going to be the last activity that we do as a class together. And in this activity, we're going to test you on how much information you might know about your local community. So if you have a copy of this, yeah, it didn't work very well last time, but maybe this time. So if you have copies, pull them out now, and if not, you can work off of the copy that I've put up on the document camera. I'll kind of read them to you as we go. Do folks have copies of this?
Yep, we do.
Yes, okay. I see some, okay, great. Thumbs up. Wonderful. So what I'd like you to do is to take a few minutes, and again, you can have a partner for this. Awesome. Go through and try to answer these questions and see how you do. And there's a lot of them. But I'd like you just to run through the first, we'll say the first 15. So as small groups, just run through the first 15 questions. pointing north.
As you get finished, if you want to give us a thumbs up, that'll help us know sort of the timing on everything.
All right, just for sake of time, we're going to just kind of move through this, but I would encourage you to take the entire quiz, or even better, quiz your family members and see how well they do on the quiz.
I'm going to bring you back on here.
So just by a show of hands, how many folks got all 15 questions? Okay, how many people got at least, oh, there's one. All right, I see one from Willard. How many people got at least 10 questions? Okay, great. How about 5 questions? Okay, so maybe we'll hear from Powell County first. What was one of the hardest questions for somebody?
They said number 5.
Number 5. How many feet above sea level? What was the consensus answer?
45 feet. A lot of people put 48, and we actually looked it up. It's like 4,500.
Okay, 4,500. Great. How about from Willard? What was one of the harder questions?
Let's see. 3 probably.
Number 3. Trace the water you drink from rainfall to the tap. That's great. That is a really hard question to do in most places. A lot of folks don't even know where the water comes from, and they might say the river without knowing that actually it comes from an underground aquifer or the other way around. So yeah, that's a great one. That's actually an exercise that I make all of my college students do halfway through the semester, because we take field trips where we look at sources of water and all the way down to the water treatment facility in Missoula. And even near the end of the semester, they can't still draw a map from raindrop to flushing the toilet where the water goes. So that's a hard one. Great. Thanks for participating. So what I want to leave you with, because we just have a few more minutes together, is some last thoughts on developing sense of place and why this is a useful tool. And you should talk more with your teachers about it, because it's a tool that many teachers actually use to teach you everything from math to social studies, English, and history. We try to bring in regional or local examples to make things more relevant to you as students, and therefore hopefully engage you in the processes, the history, the language of particular places. So how do we do this? How do we get to answer all 30 of those questions on the BioRegional Quiz and the 5 bonus questions? Well, there's a lot of different things we can do as people that are really easy to do, and we can do them in the middle of a city, or we can do them in an open space that's on the edge of a town. This is a picture up the Rattlesnake last fall, as I always like when the larch turn gold, and western larch, that many of you might know if you've traveled through western Montana, are really distinct to this particular region of Idaho, Washington, and Montana. If you show a picture of a western larch, you kind of can hone in on at least 3 states in the country, which is pretty cool. So I like to get to know my surroundings, and I do that a lot through walking, through biking, through sitting down and just spending some time in a place and getting to know it through observation. I like to bring students to different places and have them ask questions. And I run a program at the University of Montana called Wilderness and Civilization. And if you guys end up coming to the University of Montana and you want to learn more about sense of place, it's a great program. We take a lot of field trips all over the West, looking at different places and how we define people and place in those areas. And we talk about natural resources and conservation and development and volunteer efforts, water systems, all kinds of different topics. And we get to do it in a lot of different ways, through examination in research techniques and tracking wildlife, to hiking up to fire towers and getting a bird's eye view of a landscape, to taking field notes and measurements for volunteer projects. So I'm just trying to get everybody to interact with their local surroundings as much as possible. And as a teacher, that's what I try to facilitate in my classes. So there's a lot of different ways in which we can take what we learn in sense of place and then develop our own priorities in life. This is a guy I met who had worked at Free Cycles, a volunteer bike shop here in Missoula, and then decided to bike across the country to raise money for urban areas in different parts of the country to put in more bike-friendly bike racks, bike-friendly bike lanes. And so he just got all about bikes. And part of it was it's his mode of transportation. And so he took sense of place to a level of applying it to transportation and what he does for a job now. We also use our sense of place when we think about city design. This is a roundabout. Many of you have experienced roundabouts in different cities. Even in rural areas, these are becoming popular. And that's because they're easier for flow of traffic, and they mimic a natural water system. That's actually where the idea of a roundabout first came from, was watching eddies in river systems. And so we see a lot of this, what we call biomimicry, in our urban human landscapes that we take from the natural landscapes that we've connected with. Just getting outside and hiking is a way that we can help develop our own sense of places. And of course, through research travels is another way that I've slowly developed my sense of place over time. So I've taken what I've learned as a scientist, and here's a picture of weasels in different ways. This photo here is the whole Mustelidae family. The weasel family in mammals, in the larger group of mammals, is the most diverse family of mammals. And I work on a few species in particular. Let's see, point this way. That's a pine marten. As I said, folks in Montana may have seen these before. They're highly curious. That's one that I have a radio collar on. That's the little thing on its neck. That's one in a trap as it's getting a radio collar. But studying these has given me a sense of place over the years. So in closing, and thanks, Powell, for coming, I just would like to encourage you to figure out different ways to work on developing your sense of place.
All right, so looks like, Willard, if you have a minute, do you have any last questions for Dr. Dawson?
It doesn't look like it. Thank you for allowing us to join in.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
And please, thank you, Dr. Dawson. Wonderful to have you here today.